What was your reason for seceding from the Roman Catholic Church?
Well, I always wanted a male son to take the throne, and my first couple wives couldn't give that to me. So I asked the Pope for permission to divorce, and he never gave me that. So with all the power I had, I pulled England away from the church and started the Church of England. And kings during this time had absolute power, so we could just do like whatever we want. So I just pulled the whole kingdom out of the church.
How did you gain all of your power?
Well, monarchs at this time would highly enforce taxes, so I would also highly enforce taxes. And since life expectancy increased, the population increased, so I had more money to build the cities and to increase my own wealth.
I heard that there was a great conflict between France and the Pope.
Okay, it's supposed to be Fran and Charles.
I heard that there was a great conflict between France and Charles.
Yeah, King Francis and King Charles have been in a major dispute. Francis was the monarch of France, and Charles was the head of the Roman Catholic Church. And Charles and other monarchs didn't like how much power the church had and how much power Charles had. So Francis contacted me and other kings of this time, and we revolted against him and took away power from the church. Okay.
Did humanism help get the people on your side?
Yes, it played a huge role in the uprising of my power. People started to have the opportunity to possess their own goals, and they could go in their own direction without so much of a high influence of God on them. And I would send like philosophers out to public squares and cities to preach humanism to get more people going with the movement.
Who is William the Conqueror?
I am a Norman-born leader, heir to the Duchy of Normandy, and former ruler and invader of England.
What are your greatest accomplishments?
I believe my greatest accomplishments are the harrying of the North and the invasion of England.
What was the harrying of the North?
The harrying of the North was my adventure up to Northern Europe, where I proceeded to loot villages and mercilessly slaughter its citizens.
What was the Battle of Hastings?
The Battle of Hastings was my victorious conquest in taking over England and ruling it as my own. What did you go to school for?
I went to school to become a Gothic architect, but then that didn't appeal to my liking.
What did you find out about Gothic architecture?
Well, I found out that throughout the expansion of the new form of building, each country that it bled into had its own little modification. England had, instead of one big room in the whole, for the whole cathedral, they added many little rooms. And in France, instead of having one tower in the front, they had two or more. And there were many influential people, but two of the most influential people were Suger and Giotto di Bondone. Suger rebuilt the St. Denis Basilia and began the use of bigger windows, which had a very large impact on the later buildings. And Giotto di Bondone began using the vaulting system, which helped stabilize the buildings. And he also began the use of gargoyles. There were many distinct characteristics of Gothic architecture. Some were in the beginning and some were added. There were such as pointed rooftops, the gargoyles, big windows, and the pinnacles.
Why didn't you become a Gothic architect?
There were too many people becoming Gothic architects, and there wasn't enough space for me to have a steady living. And there were the skill that I needed, I didn't have at the time.
What was Ireland like before the English takeover?
Well, it was great. There were tuatha, or individual kingdoms, each with its own king. We made money from cattle rearing and farming, and we liked to grow wheat, barley, oats, flax, and hay.
When was Ireland taken over by England?
Well, King Henry II invaded Ireland in October 1171, but he didn't even really want it. You know, King Henry only wanted Ireland so it wouldn't become a rival Norman state. The Treaty of Windsor was signed in 1175, and by 1500, the monarch of England was also the ruler of Ireland.
Why is there tension between the Catholics and Protestants?
Well, you see, those Protestants just came up in here and were like, we live here now. It'd be one thing if they were nice, but they weren't. They just took all the spots in the government. We don't have any say in what happens in Ireland at all. Our rights have been taken away.
Thank you, Pat McGoran. Right, here, I'll tell you the question.
What's your musket?
Not very. I just point my gun at things and then shoot. Armies during this time needed a large amount of troops due to the inaccuracy of their firearms.
Was your father in the army?
Yes, he was. My father was a tunnel digger in the war. He took a shovel and he dug a hole to the enemy fortress. His job was extremely important because it allowed troops to siege a fortress. That was until he slipped and impaled himself on his shovel.
Have you ever sieged a fortress?
I have. We used to bombard fortresses with artillery fire from our trebuchets and mortars for hours until they surrendered or all died. What a jolly time it was. When we got into the wall, everything was destroyed most of the time, but at least we got some new land.
What did you usually wear on the battlefield?
I usually wore bright and fancy clothing because my generals believe they make our troops stronger and more courageous.
I shall protect you, my lady.
No, stop.
I don't even know the power of my own axe. I have eliminated all the threats, my lady.
Except for one.
Yo! Oh. Why would you do that?